As Evan stepped out of his car, he couldn't shake off the feeling of sadness and loneliness that had been weighing on him. He entered his house, where the maid hastily opened the gate for him. Meanwhile, Jenna was fuming at her father's decision to sell her stepsister Esther's company to the Giusha family, which would ultimately lead to Esther marrying into the family. Her father reassured her it was a strategic business move, but Jenna was unconvinced. When asked if she'd consider marrying a crippled man, Jenna quickly declined. Just then, Evan walked in, holding a pack of peanuts. He handed them to Jenna, his longtime crush, who couldn't help but smile as she accepted the gift and began munching happily on the peanuts. Evan still reeled from Esther's departure, his sadness lingering. Evan's eyes widened in shock. To himself, he whispered a relieved thought: with Esther gone, Jenna would finally be free from her bullying. However, unbeknownst to him, Jenna's intentions weren't entirely pure. She was merely using him for her own purposes, hiding her true nature behind a facade. As they spent the day together, Evan took Jenna shopping, and they hung out that night, their bond growing stronger. Jenna remained oblivious to Evan's true identity as the wealthy heir who had secretly admired her for so long. The next day, Evan took Jenna shopping. As they drove, their car was involved in an accident. Jenna was shaken, screaming for help as Evan rushed to protect her. Miraculously, they both survived, and Evan was hospitalized with injuries. Jenna stayed by Evan's side throughout his treatment, her concern genuine. As Evan recuperated, she asked him why he had been so kind to her, protecting her even when he was technically Esther's bodyguard. Evan's response was enigmatic: in 3 days, he would take her somewhere and reveal a long-held secret. Jenna agreed, and after leaving the hospital, she couldn't help but wonder what Evan wanted to confess. Back in his hospital bed, Evan's thoughts drifted to Esther, memories flooding his mind. He recalled how she would feed him and care for him when he was sick. He shook off the nostalgia, focusing on the present and the secrets he was about to reveal to Jenna. The next day, Evan prepared an elaborate setup, gathering wealthy gifts and guests, hoping to confess his love to Jenna. However, as the hours ticked by, Jenna failed to show up, and her phone went unanswered. The guests began to murmur, wondering what had happened. Evan's bodyguard approached him, suggesting, "Boss, time is passing, perhaps we should try to reach her." Evan instructed the bodyguard to locate Jenna. The bodyguard soon returned with shocking news: "Boss, Miss Jenna is at the beauty salon, she has a hair appointment." Evan's anger boiled over, and he demanded to be taken to the salon immediately. Upon arrival, Evan approached the door, hesitating for a moment before overhearing Jenna's conversation with her friend. She laughed, saying she'd never marry a bodyguard. Evan's eyes widened in shock, his heart sinking as he realized Jenna's true intentions. Jenna continued, "I knew he was going to propose today, but I deliberately didn't show up. Why would I marry a lowly bodyguard?" Her friend chimed in, "But he loves you, and he saved you. He even has your name tattooed on him." Jenna dismissed her friend's words, saying, "So what? To me, he's just a bodyguard, nothing more." She added with a smirk, "I've got my eyes on the prince heir to the throne. Why waste my time on a bodyguard when I can marry a rich prince?" Unbeknownst to Jenna, Evan stood by the door, overhearing every word. What she didn't know was that Evan held a secret: he was the prince heir himself. Jenna continued, her voice dripping with malice, "It's ironic, foolish Esther loves him, but he loves me. And I don't love him. What a joke." Her cruelty knew no bounds as she confessed to orchestrating Esther's mother's demise and reveling in Esther's suffering and humiliation. Evan's eyes turned red with rage as he listened, his perception of Jenna shattered. He realized his mistake in blaming Esther and felt a wave of regret wash over him. With a stern expression, he instructed the salon manager to keep his presence a secret and turned to leave. Alone, Evan's tears flowed freely as he whispered to himself, "So all this while, Jenna wasn't the one I truly cared for, it was Esther. And I kept turning her down." The weight of his realization crushed him, and he couldn't help but wonder what could have been if only he had seen the truth sooner. The next day, Evan's grandfather summoned him home, furious upon seeing photos of Evan working as a bodyguard. "She must marry from a suitable family," he thundered. "Those people aren't worthy of joining our circle." Evan pleaded for one more day to uncover the truth, promising a satisfactory explanation. His grandfather's warning was stern: "We'll never accept a woman like her." The following day, Evan's bodyguard presented him with damning evidence about Jenna's true nature. The files revealed Esther's mistreatment from age 7 onwards, and Evan's eyes welled up with tears as he read about the suffering Jenna had inflicted. He was consumed by regret. On his birthday, Evan's guard handed him an iPad containing footage of Jenna's cruel deeds. Meanwhile, Jenna and her family arrived at the party, hyping up the prospect of their daughter marrying the prince. Unbeknownst to them, Evan had a shocking surprise in store, one that would expose Jenna's true nature and change everything. As the announcement "All hail the prince" echoed through the hall, Evan emerged, walking boldly and slowly, his presence commanding attention. The crowd's eyes were fixed on him, and Jenna's family was stunned to discover the bodyguard was, in fact, the prince. Jenna's face flushed as she envisioned herself as the future Mrs. Gu, assuming Evan would propose to her. However, Evan had other plans. He announced his engagement to an elderly woman, shocking Jenna. Despite her protests, her greedy father eagerly agreed, citing the financial benefits. Jenna pleaded with her father, tears streaming down her face, but he was too enticed by the offer to care. The news also brought consequences for Jenna's father, as he was blacklisted from all companies. The shock proved too much, and he fainted. Evan whispered to himself, "Esther, I have avenged you." That night, Evan boarded a flight to stop Esther's impending marriage to a man in a vegetative state, determined to make amends and set things right. In a miraculous turn of events, as Esther cared for the man in a vegetative state, he suddenly stirred, regaining consciousness. She quickly called the doctors, who confirmed his recovery. The family was overjoyed, thanking Esther for bringing good fortune to their son. The Gu family's son, who had been unresponsive for so long, was now awake and mobile, his eyes locked on Esther with gratitude. The news spread like wildfire, and the atmosphere shifted from despair to jubilation. Little did they know, Evan was on his way to intervene in the marriage, but fate seemed to have other plans. Mr. Gu woke up with a smile, eager to start his new life with Esther. He promised to protect her with his life, saying, "I know you don't love me yet, but let's give it a try. We'll get to know each other better." Esther's gentle smile and soft okay gave him hope. She decided to take a chance on love. The next day, Mr. Gu called a gathering of the household staff, his voice firm but kind. "From now on, Esther is the lady of the house," he declared. "I expect you all to treat her with respect and care. Anyone who disrespects her will face punishment." The staff bowed in unison, their faces solemn with obedience. The following morning, Esther woke up to a flurry of activity. A team of maids presented her with an array of exquisite clothes, their faces beaming with smiles. "Mr. Gu wanted us to prepare a grand selection for you," one of them explained. Esther's cheeks flushed with shyness as she browsed through the elegant attire. Just then, Evan entered the room, his smile warm and reassuring. "Don't worry, Esther," he said. "I'll always be here for you. You'll never suffer or be bullied. You'll have everything you need." His words brought a sense of comfort and security to Esther's heart. The next day, Gu took Esther to watch the sunset, the warm orange glow casting a romantic ambience. He turned to her, his voice filled with sincerity, "I know you still can't forget Evan, but I'm willing to wait." Esther's heart skipped a beat as she looked into his eyes. Surprising him, she said, "Let's get married." Gu's face lit up with joy, and he smiled, relieved and happy that she had finally agreed. On the wedding day, as Esther was getting ready, Gu entered the room. He gently lifted her chin and gazed at her forehead, his eyes filled with adoration. "You look stunning," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. As Gu teased her, Esther's cheeks flushed with shyness. But he quickly reassured her with affectionate words, "I'll always be by your side." They exchanged tender smiles. On the wedding day, Esther and Gu walked hand in hand down the aisle, surrounded by the expectant gaze of their guests. Gu whispered softly to Esther, "Don't be scared, I'm here." She smiled and nodded, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. Just as they were exchanging their vows, the doors burst open and Evan stormed in, his voice echoing through the hall. "No. This wedding can't hold." The crowd's eyes widened in shock, and murmurs erupted as Evan rushed forward. "Esther, please don't marry him," he pleaded, his eyes locked on hers. Esther's face reflected her shock and surprise, and the crowd began to whisper among themselves, wondering what was happening. The ceremony came to an abrupt halt, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Esther's voice was firm as she demanded, "What are you doing here? Go to your beloved Jenna." Evan's eyes locked onto hers, filled with regret and longing. "I'm sorry, I mistook her for someone else," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "The person I've felt in love with for a long time was you." He took a step closer, his words spilling out in a rush. "I was blinded, and I loved the wrong person. Jenna fooled me, played me, and I didn't realize it until now." He poured out the entire story, explaining how Jenna had manipulated him. Esther's eyes dropped, hurt and pain etched on her face. Evan's voice was filled with remorse as he added, "I'm sorry I made you suffer all these years. If I had known earlier, you wouldn't have suffered like this." Meanwhile, Gu Shane stood frozen, his face boiling with anger and resentment as he watched Evan confess his feelings to Esther, the woman he was about to marry. Gu's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched in tension, as he struggled to contain his emotions. Esther's voice trembled with sadness and anger as she asked, "Do you think saying sorry will fix everything?" Her eyes flashed with pain as she reminded him, "Do you remember how you treated me because of Jenna? You did everything for her, but you bullied me, humiliated me, had me kidnapped, and whipped me by thugs." Her voice cracked as she added, "You even tattooed her name on your chest." Evan's face fell, his eyes dropping in shame as Esther continued, "Have you ever looked at me all these years? I'm a human too." His expression was one of regret and sorrow as he pleaded, "I'm begging you, please give me another chance. I've gotten revenge on the people who bullied you, including Gina. I've dealt with them all, including your father." He took a step closer to Esther, his hand reaching out to hers. However, Gu Shane swiftly intervened, his voice firm and authoritative. "Please, Evan, watch yourself. This is my wedding day. Don't cause a scene." Evan's expression turned cold, his voice dripping with possessiveness. "It's none of your business. I've known Esther, and she belongs to me." The tension between the two men escalated, with Gu Shane standing firm. "You've hurt Esther enough, Evan. You disgust me. Back off." Evan's anger boiled over, his fists clenched as he raised his hands to punch Gu Shane. But Gu Shane warned him, his voice steady and unwavering. "Even if you're a prince, I'm not afraid of you." In a sudden shift, Evan proposed a deal, his voice calculated. "If you let go of Esther, I'll give you all my company's assets and property." The air was thick with tension as the two men locked eyes, each determined to have their way. Gu Shane's expression remained resolute as he turned down Evan's offer, his voice filled with conviction. "I won't trade the love I have for Esther for all the money in the world. You're not welcome here. Get out." The Gu family rallied behind Esther, their faces firm with determination. Gu Shane's parents stepped forward, their voices filled with authority. "Esther is now part of our family, and we will always protect her." Esther's eyes welled up with tears as she saw the Gu family's unwavering support. But before she could process her emotions, Evan's expression turned sinister. "If you don't agree to marry me," he threatened, "I've planted a bomb that will kill all of you." Esther's face contorted in anger as she demanded, "What do you want?" Evan's voice was laced with desperation. "Come with me, and give me another chance." Esther's response was immediate and bold. "I will never come with you." Evan's face twisted in anger. "Then we'll all die together." The crowd erupted into screams, begging Esther to go with Evan to save their lives. The atmosphere was chaotic, with panic and fear gripping everyone's hearts. Esther reluctantly agreed to go with Evan, her eyes locking onto Gu's as she assured him, "I'll be back to you." Evan dragged her away, leaving Gu and the others in a state of helpless anguish. In a picturesque garden, Evan brought Esther to a beautiful setting, filled with flowers and soft music. He pleaded with her, promising to make amends for his past mistakes. However, Esther's heart remained unmoved, and she refused to give him another chance. The next day, as Evan prepared a meal for Esther in the garden, she asked him, her voice laced with sarcasm, "Did you learn how to cook from Jenna?" Evan's face turned red with annoyance, and he requested, his voice strained, "Please don't bring her up again." But Esther continued to taunt him, purposely mentioning Jenna in every conversation. Evan's eyes reddened with frustration, his anger simmering just below the surface. As Esther stood up, ready to leave the dinner table, Evan's emotions were on the verge of boiling over. Evan handed Esther a knife, his voice filled with determination. Cut off the tattoo of Jenna's name on my chest. Esther refused, but Evan took matters into his own hands, holding hers and cutting off the tattoo himself. As he fell to the ground, fainting from the pain, he whispered, "Esther, I love you." Esther's voice was barely audible as she whispered to herself, "I don't hate you, Evan, but I no longer believe in you." The next day, Evan woke up in a sickbed, a doctor tending to his wounds. "You fainted for a whole day," the doctor informed him. Evan's first question was about Esther, and the doctor replied, "She's in the garden." Evan quickly rushed to the garden, despite his weak state. His eyes locked onto Esther, and he pleaded, "Don't call Gu your husband." Esther's response was firm. "I will call him my husband and my darling." Evan's face contorted in anguish. "You can do this to me, but don't hate me. I'll pay with my life to atone for my sins." Esther's voice was cold. "Do as you please." She added, her words cutting, "Don't be stupid. No matter what, I won't love you." But Evan refused to let go, holding her hands and pleading, his eyes filled with desperation. He pulled her into a tight hug, his body trembling with emotion. Esther pushed Evan away, her voice firm. "For the next 3 days, you're not allowed to hurt yourself." With that, she walked away, leaving Evan behind. The next day, Evan brought her a bouquet of flowers, hoping to win her over. But Esther's response was dismissive. She collected the flowers only to throw them away in the trash bin. Evan's face fell, his eyes filled with disappointment. Undeterred, Evan took her to a playground, hoping the carefree atmosphere would lift her spirits. However, Esther's attention was elsewhere, and she snubbed him, her indifference piercing Evan's heart. Despite his efforts, Esther remained distant, her feelings for him unchanged. The next day, Esther packed her bags, her voice firm as she announced, "I'm leaving." Evan's face creased with concern. "Why?" he asked, his voice laced with desperation. Esther's response was blunt. "Don't flatter yourself. I'm no longer in love with you. The place my heart belongs is not here." She added, her words cutting, "Whether you love or die has nothing to do with me anymore." Evan's face twisted in anger. "I knew it. You've always been this cold. You never loved me." His voice dripped with bitterness. "Okay, I can let you go. But you need to choose between me and Gu Shane." Esther remained silent, her expression unreadable. Evan's eyes gleamed with a mix of desperation and determination. "Okay, let's play a game of gamble," he said, his voice low and husky. "There are 4 glasses of wine, and one contains poison. If you stay, I won't die." With that, he began drinking the glasses of wine, one by one, his eyes never leaving Esther's face. Esther's response was immediate. "I won't stay. I'm leaving." Just as she turned to walk away, the poison Evan had drunk took effect, and he collapsed to the ground, blood trickling from his mouth. "You are heartless," he whispered, his voice barely audible, before he fell unconscious. Nurses and doctors rushed to his side, frantically trying to save him. Meanwhile, Esther picked up her luggage and walked away, her expression unreadable. As she emerged from the chaos, she spotted Gu Shane waiting for her. Her face lit up with a smile as she called out his name. Gu turned, his eyes locking onto hers, and his face broke into a warm smile. "I'm back," Esther said, her voice filled with emotion. Gu's eyes roamed over her face, his voice filled with adoration. "You look stunning today, and beautiful." Esther's cheeks flushed with a blush as she smiled. Just as the moment was perfect, Jenna, Esther's stepsister, appeared out of nowhere, a knife clutched in her hand. Her eyes blazed with hatred as she lunged at Esther. But Gu Shane reacted quickly, pushing Esther out of the way and shielding her from the blade. The knife plunged into his side, and he grimaced in pain. Esther's slap sent Jenna stumbling back, her face red with shock. Security rushed in, taking Jenna away as she struggled and screamed. Esther's concern was solely for Gu Shane, her voice trembling with worry. "Are you okay?" she asked, her eyes scanning his face. Gu Shane's smile was weak but genuine. "As long as you're fine, I'm okay. It's worth taking the knife for you." Esther's eyes welled up with tears as she begged, "Please don't die." "You won't die." Gu Shane's voice was soft, his words filled with emotion. "Do you love me?" he asked. Tears streaming down her face, Esther replied quickly, "Yes, I do." Her words hung in the air, filled with sincerity. Fast forward to their wedding day, Esther and Ji Shane stood before their loved ones, exchanging vows at the altar. The atmosphere was filled with joy and love as the whole family clapped in rejoice, their faces beaming with happiness. The newlyweds shared a tender smile, their love shining brighter than ever. As Esther and Ji Shane exchanged rings, their fingers intertwined, sealing their love forever. Ji Shane pulled her into a tender hug, his voice barely above a whisper. "I love you." Their lips met in a soft, sweet kiss, the world around them melting away. The moment was perfect, their love triumphant. And that's the end.